Today we are going to discuss about the third lesson of your biology, that is transportation, the circulatory system. So first of all, we all know that all the living organisms, for their growth, for their maintenance of body, they need nutrients, different gases, different liquids. So these materials are transported within the body. For example, if you take unicellular organisms like amoeba and a simple organism like hydra, these materials are transported by a simple process, either by the diffusion or by the osmosis. But if you take the higher organisms, including man, their body is made up of trillion number of cells. So if the materials are transported by the diffusion or osmosis, it takes years to transport all these materials within your body. So to avoid delay and for the efficient and fast transport of the materials, a special system is needed. That system only we called as the circulatory system. It is developed in the higher animals for the efficient transport of all type of materials within the body. First of all, anyway, we all know that, have you heard that heartbeat? So when you suffered with any illness, when you went to the doctor immediately, by keeping the stethoscope on your chest, he observed the heartbeat. So actually, students, do you know that the stethoscope was first discovered by a scientist known as René Linnac in the year 1816. The stethoscope was the first discovered by a scientist known as René Linnac in the year 1816. And have you observed that even doctor also check your pulse by keeping his thumb on your wrist? So is there any relation between the number of heartbeat and the pulse rate? Means definitely yes. Why? Because the pulse rate is always equals to the number of heartbeat. So here just generally for adults, and if the children more than 10 years and including all adults, the heartbeat rate varies between 60 to 100, means 60 to 100 times per minute. But in the newborn child, it is nearly 100 to 150 times per minute. Means if the age is increasing, the number of heartbeats were decreasing. But if you go for well-trained athletes or sports persons, they are able to control their breath rate. So in them, the heartbeat just it is varies between 40 to 60 times per minute. And if you just go for the structure of heart, have you seen that structure of the heart? From externally, for example, if you want to observe the heart, means it is the pear-shaped structure and it is triangle in outer line, but anterior, wider at anterior and slowly decreasing at the posterior end. Means here like this the shape of the heart from external. It is just pear-shaped structure, wider at the anterior and narrower at the posterior end. And now we will go for the internal structure of the human heart. Just carefully observe the diagram, it is very easy. The heart is mainly divided into 4 chambers. Heart is mainly divided into 4 chambers. The upper 2 chambers we called as atria or auricles, and the lower 2 chambers are we called as ventricles. So here 4 chambers, now 2 chambers are right side, 2 right upper chamber, right lower chamber. In the same way, left upper chamber, left lower chamber. So the upper 2 chambers we called as either atria or auricles. The lower 2 chambers we called as ventricles. So this one is right atrium, and the left side of upper chamber what we call left atrium, right atrium, left atrium, and the right side lower chamber we call as right ventricle, and the left side lower chamber we call as left ventricle. And if you anyway, even in previous lesson, means in the respiration lesson, we seen that the lungs are surrounded by a 2 layers of membranes. What we call that one means that one pleura. In the same way, all the delicate organs in your body are protected by either 2 or 3 layers of membranes. And here in the same way, the heart is also surrounded by a 2 layer of membranes. What we call means the pericardial membrane, what we call the pericardial membrane, and the lace between the pericardial membrane is filled with a fluid known as pericardial fluid. That fluid protects the heart from the different shocks and blows. And coming to the vessels. So have you know about what are meant by a blood vessel means? A blood vessel is a thin tube-like structures which are developed in the higher organisms, to supply or to transport the liquid or nothing but blood. So we will see and what are the different blood vessels, we see that. So actually the blood vessels are divided into two categories. One are arteries and another one veins. What are the two blood vessels means? Arteries and veins. So just we will see that very important topic in this lesson, what are meant by arteries and veins means. I already told to you these are two different type of blood vessels. But why we separately studied both arteries and veins individually means there is the differences between arteries and veins. So coming to arteries, the arteries are somewhat rigid in nature, means at the same time they are having thick walls. But coming to veins, those are less rigid and their walls are very thin. And just this is the most important points, remember carefully. The arteries are the blood vessels which always carry blood from heart to body parts. But the veins are blood vessels which always collect blood from body parts and bring back to heart. But all the arteries did the same function and all the veins did the same function. But there is one exception that we called as pulmonary artery. Remaining all arteries carry blood from heart to body parts. But this one is the exceptional case. The pulmonary artery is the only artery which transport blood from lungs to heart, means reverse, actually body part to heart. But coming to veins, all the veins carry blood from body parts to heart. But here it is also one exception, that is pulmonary vein. That pulmonary vein carry blood from heart to lungs. So these two are exceptional case. All arteries carry blood from heart to body parts, but pulmonary artery carry blood from lungs to heart. But all veins carry blood from body part to heart, but pulmonary vein carry blood from heart to lungs. And the blood, the nature of the blood which flows in the artery is always oxygenated blood, means the blood which pump from heart, if it pump to the lungs, and in the lungs the oxygen is transported or exchanged between the blood capillaries and alveoli of lungs. Already we studied in previous lesson. So the oxygen rich blood, what we termed means, that is oxygenated blood which is red in color. That oxygenated blood always transported through the arteries to all the body parts. But the blood which is collected from the veins, it is having less amount of oxygen, negligible amount of oxygen, but having high amount of oxygen. So it is slightly blue in color. So the deoxygenated blood is transported in the veins. So very important these differences. And what is the exception here means pulmonary artery. Here what is the exception means pulmonary vein. And these are the two different blood vessels. And in the arteries, what is the largest artery means aorta. Have you seen that in the diagram, Amma? The top one I written aorta. And systemic artery also we call that. That aorta carries the transport the blood to all the body parts from your heart. So that we called as either aorta or systemic artery. This one actually, this one what we call either aorta or systemic artery. This is the largest artery. And have you seen this one pulmonary artery? I already told to you this is the smallest artery. What is this? Smallest artery, and it just carries blood only to lungs. Aorta, here the divisions are there. Now these two divisions carries blood to the head, and this one to hands, like that. This is the only artery which again divide into many branches and supplies blood to your overall body parts. But here only the pulmonary artery including left branch and right branch, right pulmonary artery and left pulmonary artery. This pulmonary artery, right and left pulmonary artery branches carries blood from heart to lungs, to two different lungs. And here these are the pulmonary veins. These two pulmonary veins carry oxygenated blood from lungs to the heart. And here one more blood vessels are present. Even all body parts needed the blood for their functioning. But in the same way, the heart is also need blood for its proper functioning. Heart muscles also need blood. So to supply blood to the heart muscles, a special blood vessels are present. Those we called as coronary vessels. What we call coronary vessels. These coronary vessels are specialized to supply or to transport blood to the heart vessels. And here actually some special structures are present inside your heart. If you observe the heart, there is the special aperture or gap between the atrium and ventricle at both sides, left side and right side. Here the walls are the special structure which always help to flow the blood only in one direction. If the reverse is happen, they won't allow actually. So the walls are only one way walls, means the blood flows in one direction. They allow the two blood flow in only one direction. If the reverse happen, they won't allow. These walls present in your veins of your blood vessels. At the same time, some walls, especially 4 types of walls in present in your heart. So look at the diagram carefully. First one, actually atria and ventricles are separated by some muscular sheets we called as septa or septum. What we call means septa or septum. So if the septa is present between right atria and right ventricle, what we call that septa? Right atrioventricular septum. If the septa is present between left atrium and left ventricle, that is left atrioventricular septum. And walls which are present at the right atrioventricular aperture or right atrioventricular septa, that wall we called as right atrioventricular valve or tricuspid valve. Why? Because it have 3 flaps in its structure. That's why we called it as tricuspid valve. So simply remember that tricuspid valve is present between right atrium and right ventricle. At the same time, there is one more wall present between the left atrium and left ventricle, or at the place of left atrioventricular aperture. That wall we called as left atrioventricular valve or bicuspid valve. And most of the times in public examination he asked about bicuspid valve, where it is located between the left atrium and left ventricle, or at the place of left atrioventricular aperture or junction. And the bicuspid valve is also called with another name known as mitral valve. What is another name for bicuspid valve? Means mitral valve. So simply tri means between right atrium and right ventricle. Di or bi. Bi means between left atrium and left ventricle. Mitral valve and bicuspid valve both are same only. And just here I want to one more 2 walls also present. I told you, totally 4 walls are present in the heart structure: tricuspid valve, bicuspid valve. And here to supply blood to the all body parts, 2 arteries arises from the 2 different chambers of the heart. Students always just listen that there is nothing complicated in the heart. Here 2 types of blood vessels are there. The arteries which need to supply blood to all body parts, they are always originates or starts from ventricle only. Just fix that point. The arteries always starts from which chambers? From the ventricles only. And the veins always collect blood and enter into auricles or atria only. Just if you observe that, if you remember the difference, means it is very easy to answer. So here 2 major arteries I told you, start from 2 different ventricles. So here this is the systemic aorta or aorta. The largest artery starts from the left ventricle of your heart. Listen, LA means aorta starts from the left ventricle. And here at the starting of the aorta from the left ventricle, one more valve is present, that we called as, what we call, that means systemic valve. What we call? Systemic valve. Why? Because that valve is present in which blood vessel, amma? That valve is present in the systemic aorta or systemic artery or aorta. And here one more artery also present, one more artery is also present, and it starts from the right ventricle. That artery we called as pulmonary artery. So the valves which are present at the opening of the pulmonary artery in the right ventricle, that valve we called as, what we call that valve? Obviously that is pulmonary valve. What we call that valve? Pulmonary valve. So if the valve is present in systemic artery, that is systemic valve, and if the valve is present in pulmonary artery, that is pulmonary valve. 4 valves: tricuspid valve, bicuspid valve, systemic valve and pulmonary valve. 4 valves are present. 2 valves are between the right atria and right ventricle, and left atria and left ventricle, and 2 valves, one is in the systemic artery or aorta, and one valve is present in the pulmonary artery. And here if you observe this diagram, and here you see number 2, these are the 2 major veins. Actually this is the major artery, aorta. This is the largest artery, and the largest vein we called as vena cava. What we call? Vena cava. And it includes 2 divisions actually. So that one we called as superior vena cava, and the lower one we called as inferior vena cava. Here we drawn one small circle like this one, actually indicates the opening of these 2 vena cavas. Superior vena cava collects deoxygenated blood from your upper body parts like head and neck, and inferior vena cava collects blood from your lower body parts like legs and hands. These 2 veins opens into the right atrium or right auricle. At the same time, here the pulmonary veins which collects blood from the lungs opens into left atrium. And you always carefully remember that the right side of your heart always contain deoxygenated blood. The right side of your body, heart contain deoxygenated blood, and the left side of your heart means the 2 chambers of your left heart always having oxygenated blood. Okay na? So just if you listen, observe and different parts of heart, you will able to find the difference between different chambers and different blood vessels. So here valves I already told to you. In the year 1574, a scientist known as Girolamo Fabrici, he studied the veins of the leg of humans, and he found that small structures known as valves are present in the veins of the leg, and these valves at normal time they are folded. For example, if you just, this is the vein, at normal time they are folded towards the veins, means the blood is easily passes, or the blood is easily pass in this vessel. But if the blood is easily passed in the upward direction, if the blood want to return, or if the blood wanting to flow in the reverse direction, these valves just they stop the passage by closing. Means at normal time they are folded towards the membrane to allow the passage of blood. But if the blood want to in the downward movement or in the reverse direction, the valves does not allow the reverse direction. So that's why we said that the valves are only one directional valves or one way valves. They always help to flow the blood towards the heart, not away from the heart. And you just remember one more point, veins are the blood vessels, always take blood from body parts towards heart, and the arteries are the blood vessels which always transport blood from heart to body parts, that means away from the heart. And here, so Girolamo Fabrici, he studied the veins in the leg, and he found that small structure present in the veins of legs that are known as valves. So here valves are at 2 places we see, between the heart chambers in the 2 blood vessels. Even all the veins of your body also contain valves. even if you are standing or you are sitting or even you are sleeping, the blood always flows in the veins towards the heart, but it does not flows in the reverse direction. Even you are standing upright also, the blood just flows in the upward movements towards the heart only. And one more scientist here, actually he is one doctor, William Harvey. William Harvey, the scientist who always studied the hearts of dissected hearts of the dead animals, and he studied the walls of heart walls which are present between the heart chambers. Even he also found that the walls are present between different atria and ventricle, and these are also one-way walls. And one more scientist known as Marsilio Malpighi. Who was that? Marsilio Malpighi. After Harvey's death, after 4 years later, Marsilio Malpighi, he studied the wings of the bat. Means bat, you know na, that one mammal. That he studied the wings of bat through microscope. He observed that finest blood vessels which connects the arteries and veins. And until the Marsilio Malpighi discovery, all scientists thought that there are only two types of blood vessels, one are arteries and one more are veins. But when through the microscope, when Marsilio Malpighi observed that a thin blood vessels what make connection between arteries and veins, then later he called that finest blood vessels as blood capillaries. Why he called that blood vessels as capillaries means, in the Latin word the capillary meaning is hair, means the capillaries are those finest as hair. How your hair follicle is present, how much thin it is, even in the same way the capillaries also that much thin. So capillaries, we can also say that capillaries is the connecting links between the arteries and veins. So capillaries, how the name got means, in the Latin word the term capillary means hair. So later we will see what is meant by cardiac cycle actually. So during embryonic development means when you are in your mother's womb, at 21st day of embryonic development, your heart starts beating. Means around your 21st day of mother's pregnancy, the embryo starts beating. The heartbeat starts at 21st day in the embryonic development. And what is meant by cardiac cycle means, here to supply the blood to overall body part, the heart just like a machine, it continuously pumps means, and if you carefully observe that pump of heart means pumping process, it just include one contraction at the same time one relaxation, contraction, relaxation. Even you heard the sound like lub dub. So how the sounds are able to produce means by contraction and relaxation of the heart alternately. So here what is meant by cardiac cycle means, the one contraction and relaxation of the heart chambers. What are the heart chambers? Atria and ventricles. One contraction and one relaxation of the heart chambers together we called as one cardiac cycle. And this cardiac cycle again include two stages. One is diastole and another one is systole. Diastole we called as relaxed stage. Okay, na diastole we called as relaxed stage. So to observe the cardiac cycle again we just go to the diagram. First of all, the blood, just listen, the veins, superior vena cava, inferior vena cava collects deoxygenated blood and open into right auricle. The same time two pulmonary veins collect oxygenated blood from lungs, open into left atria or left auricle. And once the auricles or atria are filled with the blood from atria enters into the both the ventricles, means from the right atria the blood enters into the right ventricle, from the left atria it enters into the left ventricle. So before entering into the blood, thus first of all the four chambers of the heart in relaxed state, and after that the blood from different veins enter into two different atria respectively. From the atria it enter into the ventricles. So once the blood enter into the ventricles, it may be a chance to the blood again enter back into the atria. To avoid that, the walls present between right atria and right ventricle, left atria and left ventricle closed forcibly to prevent the backward flow of blood from ventricle to the auricle or atria. So at that time we hear the sharp sound known as lub sound. But once the blood was filled in the ventricles. So from the ventricles, whenever the walls are closed, there is no chance to allow the blood from ventricles to auricles. So obviously the blood from ventricles passes into the two different arteries, means to the pulmonary artery, to the systemic artery and to the pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery goes to the lungs and systemic artery transport blood to the all body parts. Once the blood from ventricles enter into the two different arteries, the walls present between the pulmonary artery and the systemic artery closes. At that time we hear the dull sound known as dub. So these are the two different sounds produced at the pumping of heart. And here it nearly takes 0.8 seconds to complete one cardiac cycle. But again, only for atrial contraction, means only for contraction of the atria to upper chambers, it nearly takes 0.11 to 0.14 seconds. But for ventricular contraction, it takes 0.27 to 0.35 seconds. But he asked in the bit, what is the time needed for one cardiac cycle, means we can write 0.8 seconds. But if he specifically asks what is the time needed for atrial contraction and what is the time needed for ventricular contraction, we go for these options. And actually we all thought that if the body size, if the size of the organism, or if the body size of the organism, it increases, along, even our heartbeat also increases, but that is wrong concept. If the size of the body and the size of the heart are always proportionate, means if the size of the body increases, the size of the heart is also increases. If you go for mouse or rat, according to its body size, it have little bit sized heart. But if you go for elephant, even human, proportionate to their body size, their heart size is also present. But here the number of heartbeats is not proportionate to the size of the heart. Carefully remember. So if the heart weight is more, the number of heartbeats are less. If the heart weight is less, the number of heartbeats are more. Just for understanding, we are considering only two examples. First one, you know, a blue whale. This is the largest animal in the animal kingdom. The blue whale, its heart weighs about, the heart weight of blue whale is 750 kilograms. What is the heart size of heart weight? Not size, heart weight. How much it weighs? Heart, blue whale heart, 750 kgs or 750 kilogram. But in a minute it produces only 7 beats, 7 heartbeats only. But if you observe a little bird known as coal tit is what it is, one bird actually, its heart nearly weighs about only 0.15 grams. Just imagine how much small it is, 0.15 grams. Even with that much little weight heart also, it produces 1200 beats per minute. Even that much blue whale produce only 7 beats per minute. But even with this much less weight heart produce 1200 heartbeats. Okay, na? So if the body size or body size and body weight and weight of the heart increases, obviously the number of heartbeats will decrease. You just remember these two examples. And here I written single circulation and double circulation. Circulation means, you know, that the transportation. So in the animals like aquatic animals like fishes, the blood from heart, it just goes to gills for oxygenation. From the gills again it sent to the, if you take the fishes as an example, in the fishes we see single type of circulatory system. In the single type of circulation or single circulation, the blood flows through the heart only once for complete circulation, means the blood from heart entered to gills and from the gills it directly transported to all the body parts. But coming to all remaining higher animals like humans, for complete one circulation, the blood flows through the heart twice or 2 times. Means first the veins like superior vena cava and inferior vena, the veins first collect deoxygenated blood, and that deoxygenated blood sent to the lungs for the oxygenation. At the lungs there is the exchange of gases takes place, and from the lungs the oxygenated blood does not directly send to the all the body cells. Again from the lungs it sent back to the heart, and from the heart again through the artery it supplied to all body cells. So here for complete one circulation it cross through the heart 2 times or twice. That's why we call that type of circulation as double circulation. Why? Because for complete one circulation, how many times it go to the heart? Means 2 times. Okay na? So such one we call as double circulation. And here actually lymph, one more term also we cross that is lymph. Actually through the arteries the oxygenated blood supplied to all the body parts. So from the arteries again smallest divisions arterioles are present, and after arterioles the finest capillaries are present. Now these capillaries connected to each and every cell. These capillaries are connected to tissues and cells of all body parts. Through these capillaries the blood was entered into cells, but while enter into the blood while enter into the tissues through the capillaries, some amount of blood will be entered into the space between the cells of the tissue. That fluid portion of the blood we called as tissue fluid actually. So the tissue fluid contain all digestive nutrients and required gases, those all, but it does not contain any solid particles like blood cells. So simply we can say that the blood is the liquid which contain liquid and solid particles also. Here solid means we can say that blood cells also, but the lymph is the fluid which does not, lymph is the portion of the blood which does not contain any solid things. Means to transport lymph, like how blood vessels are present to transport blood, in the same way for transportation of lymph one more vessels present we called as lymph vessels. These lymph vessels are very thin, and through that they don't allow the different solid particles. So the liquid portion, the blood without solid particles, we can say that lymph. In the Latin the word lymph means water. So here lymph is, and here lymphatic system and venous system both the works in a parallel way to transport nutrients to the cells. And how the transportation system will be evolved in the organisms from lower to higher. Even this is the most important area. For example, if you say just to see the unicellular organisms like amoeba, here it don't entire body is made up of one cell. That's why the fluid present in the cell known as protoplasm, that protoplasm continuously moves, and it shows the movements known as Brownian movements, what we call Brownian movements. Through these Brownian movements the nutrients are distributed entire the cell. Then coming to, compared to amoeba, next somewhat developed organisms like protozoan, example sponges. In the protozoans, obviously they are all present in the seas only, so they don't have any special system or organ. They develop their own water currents for transportation. Water currents means like water movements, but water movements are not reliable, they change. That's why with the help of flagella they continuously beat and help to transport the different materials. And the next one we call as cnidarians, coelentrates. So in 9th standard in the classification you see in coelentrates. Coelentrates are also called as cnidarians. Like example hydra and jellyfish. In these organisms a sac-like structure is present known as gastrovascular cavity. Here the gastrovascular cavity taken up the function of both digestion and transportation. Means digestion and transportation of nutrients to every cell done by the same cavity or sac we called as gastrovascular cavity in hydra and jellyfish cnidarians. Then next level we seen as Platyhelmin. These are flatworms like Fasciola hepatica example. In this Platyhelmin, very important, in this Platyhelmin, the digestive system is highly branched into number of branches, and each branch will be connected with the cells of the body. So that's why This highly branched digestive system transport the nutrients and gases to the cells directly, and here in the platyhelmin this excretory system also directly collect the waste material from the different cells. So if in the platyhelmin this most of their body space occupied by the digestive and excretory systems only. The next one after platyhelminthes, next one we call as the nematodes or nematyhelminthes. In the nematyhelminthes, it is not actually true body coelom, partial body coelom is developed that we call as pseudocoelom. What we call pseudocoeloms taken up the function of transportation of different materials, nematyhelminthes. Next one annelids. Next one phylum Annelida or annelids, means like earthworm, leech, these all are come under annelids. So in the annelids, the first time to transport a liquid within the body, a special vessel or pulsatile means just pumped అంటే contract and relax on pulsatile vessel was developed in the Annelida group only, Annelida phylum. The first time mostly he asked in which phylum or in which group of organisms first time the pulsatile vessel was developed means in the Annelida. Okay, the next one, all the insects are come under which category? The largest phylum in the animal kingdom, what we call arthropoda, means even ants gani, butterfly gani, even if it's most of the insects, what the insects, cockroach, everything what you are seeing your surroundings, all insects are come under arthropoda only. So that in the arthropods first time a pulsatile organ, nothing but heart was developed until annelids there is no heart. In which group, in which phylum first time the heart or pulsatile contracting organ was developed means in the arthropods only. And the next, so these all under what are the different transportation systems in different organisms, you just read carefully, mostly this is important area. The next one, blood pressure.